Hello and welcome. This is your host, Lisa Neller, and you are listening to a Bliss Buddy Chat, a self-care and healthy living conversation worth listening to because what we bring to the table are self-care strategies to make life more enjoyable. BringMeBliss.com is a self-care and healthy living blog for women. It's about helping women achieve utter joy and contentment in spite of their trials and circumstances. Our guests have an expertise in the self-care space, and we are bringing you real stories, tips, strategies, and solid advice for achieving a better life. Our content delivers information that addresses mind, body, and spirit. We promote getting in touch with all areas of yourself for better understanding and developing skills to live life intelligently. We want to help you reduce your stress and workload so you can live life to the fullest. This conversation is for you to learn better strategies for living well, eating well, moving well, and working well. Living out the second half of life with gusto, meaning, and purpose is what we are about. I'm interested in real stories from real people who have gone through rough stuff and have come out the other side. Each Bliss Buddy conversation includes myself and my Bliss Buddy, a real woman who helps bring joy to others with her spirit, her heart, her life, and her work. Today's Bliss Buddy is Michelle Rusinko. Michelle Rusinko, inspired by her own healthy transformation, studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and became a board-certified integrative nutrition health coach. Her passion for cooking and recipe developing led her to perform healthy cooking demos at Whole Food Markets, Scottsdale Resorts, and other local Phoenix area venues. Michelle is also a passionate speaker on wellness and is an ACE certified personal trainer. In late 2013, she published her first book, Simply Seasonal, a simple guide to eating delicious and nutritious food, after Dr. Mark Hyman released two of her recipes in his book, The Blood Sugar Solution Cookbook. Previously, Michelle had a career in consumer product sales and marketing, traveling extensively and visiting all 50 United States and 25 countries. Her philosophy is simple, making it easy to make good choices. And her mission is to change people's lives for the better. Michelle happens to be a friend of mine. We have taught yoga and fitness classes at the same resort for several years, and we both have a passion for cooking. Michelle has been an inspiration for me in the kitchen as well as the gym. She is a results-oriented person and wants the best for her clients and her friends. Today, she's going to guide us into some simple things we can do to tone down the belly and experience that feel-good feeling most of the time. She will be the first to tell you that we are continually evolving into our best selves, and it's a process. And I'm delighted that she's bringing her expertise to us today. So welcome, Michelle. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the weight issue and food and body movement today. But first of all, I would like you to share your personal story of how you were once a stressed out corporate traveling salesperson, and you had some health problems that led you to some personal change. So tell us where you were and what made you change your lifestyle.
Okay, well, it was when I was 42 years old, almost 8 years ago, that I retired from my sales director position. I was living in London at the time. It was my last assignment. I had traveled pretty much every week for 20 years. And in those 20 years, it was fascinating. I have no regrets. I learned so much. I'm an adventurous person, so I couldn't wait to get to the next city or state, and more importantly to me, to the next restaurant. I am a total foodie. I love food. I love to eat it. I love to cook it, and now I'm teaching people how to eat it, in healthy ways. So with traveling comes a lot of stress. With that kind of a job comes a lot of stress, and a lot of, weight gain. I was probably 35 pounds heavier than I am today, with no muscle, because I wasn't thinking about my health. I was in survival mode. I was trying to, do the best I could in my job and support myself. So exercise just wasn't part of my day except to chase after cabs, and run after trains. And, it's just something I didn't think about until I got to be in my 40s, and I, started to notice it was harder for me to run up and down stairs and after, um, trains. So I came back to the U.S. and decided it was time to make a change. And I jumped into the gym. It was intuitive to me. I was a high school athlete, and I started feeling pretty good. I started working some of the weight I had off. I had an enormous belly. That's where I had most of my weight gain, and I thought, like a lot of people do, I'll just get in the gym and exercise this off. Several hundred crunches will do the trick, and that is absolutely not the case. I worked so hard in the gym, and then I would come home and I would eat a bag of potato chips because I just didn't know any better. So I found out quickly, because as I started feeling a little bit better, maybe lost a little bit, some inches, I really was still sick. I had, I felt fatigued. I didn't have the energy I once had. I had rashes on my arms, eczema. I had flushing, my face was flushed. I had inflammation in my body, basically. And it's unfortunate that this happened after I, walked away from corporate health insurance which I never used. I spent a lot of money out of pocket going to medical doctors that just told me I was aging and that I had to get used to the fact that my skin was changing as I aged. And not diagnosing that I had inflammation, leaky gut syndrome, and food allergies caused by the previous two. So it was very frustrating to me because I had to diagnose myself. Dr. Mark Hyman was a big part of that. He has a wonderful website that helps a lot of people. I think it's drhyman.com, and I still follow him today. He's now the director of the new Functional Medicine Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. We're finally starting to talk about nutrition in healing. I mean, because I've been doing this for now over 5 years, and food is medicine. Hippocrates said it, and I've learned that that's exactly what it is. And I've proven it. I'm on this journey 5 years into it, and I'm still learning things about myself. I did some damage, in those years that I was on the road. My nutrition was poor. I obviously had a lack of exercise. I drank way too much alcohol. I was, my sleep was restless. And I had a lot of stress in my life. And in the last 5 years, I've really become an expert on the nutrition and the exercise. I feel like I've nailed it. And even the sleep, I'm so much better at it. It's all scheduling. It's all just, becoming committed to it and changing your lifestyle and changing your behavior. I feel I've nailed everything, but the stress was my last, that was my last big mountain to conquer. And I finally feel I've nailed that, because all of those, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, poor sleep quality, high stress, all of those contribute to disease, and drinking too much alcohol. I have to mention that. I'm not saying not to drink it. I enjoy a great bottle of wine, but just not in excess. And whatever I could do to help people be healthier, that's what I'm here for now. And learn from, I've had this is a personal, very, very personal journey. And boy, sometimes I think a lot of these things were thrown at me so that I could help others. And that's why I'm here with you today, Lisa. Whatever we could do to help people get to their healthiest self, because I honestly didn't know how bad I felt until I started feeling so good. And I tell that to people all the time. And even now, I'm going to be 50 in September. I feel better now than I did when I was 30. So
that's amazing. I mean, yeah. I know, and I hear you, because I agree that we can just go and go and go and just not pay attention to how we're feeling because we're so busy. And as you said, as you're traveling, you're eating, out all the time and not having time for exercise and all that. And I want to talk about food for a minute, because I love food and I love wine, and I have a little belly fat myself. And so I want to know what the main culprits are to hanging on to this little pooch called our belly fat.
That's a tough one. I mean, we talk about, that's a tough one. The belly fat is basically your diet. I mean, there's no getting around it. You can do crunches all day long, and you're going to get a stronger rectus abdominis and stronger obliques, etc. But you are not going to get rid of that fat. And the fat is basically your diet, and it's probably alcohol too. A lot of people, we just don't want to feel anymore. We just resort to alcohol in general, and which is what I did. You're stressed out, and the fastest way for me to calm down was to drink a glass of wine, and I see people doing it. And so your diet is, we really need to look at what we're putting into our bodies, the nutrient density of the foods we eat. I talk a lot about eating seasonally because we want to eat what nature is providing us. And that means now in the spring we're eating, leafy greens and berries and cherries. This is a great time to kind of detox, so to speak, from a heavy winter when we all ate, heavier, the squashes and the root vegetables and more meat to keep us warm. That's pretty natural. So following that into spring, we're lightening it up a little bit. But I'm a meat eater. I am not a vegetarian or a vegan. I've tried both, and I thought I was, they were both unhealthy for me. I didn't feel well. I feel at my best when I'm eating meat, but in moderation, because meat is a source of saturated fat, and I think some of these diets that are out there are kind of crazy for people because no one diet fits everyone. And sure, if you restrict on a diet, you're going to lose weight. But we want to talk about long-term, a lifestyle change, long-term health. And it's not going to work. Diets just don't work. You want to think, it's a behavior change, it's a lifestyle change. Like I said, who would have thought, 5 years ago I'd be feeling better now than I did 20 years ago. So, so the diet's something, and it's individual. I had, for 5 years, I'm just, I tried vegan, I tried low fat, high fat, low carb, high carb. That's insane. And we're putting people through this insanity, and they're getting frustrated, and they're quitting, and they're thinking, they're sitting around. There's a lot of people sitting around waiting for the magic pill that Dr. Oz is going to never announce.
Well, what should we be focusing on with food? I mean, I know you've talked about breakfast is an important meal. Why breakfast? And what if I don't like breakfast every day? I mean, how can we just incorporate some things, healthy things, into our eating habits during the day? What can we do?
Those are great questions. And again, it's back to what I said earlier, when we got to have a plan, just like you would map out your business plan or your meeting with your boss, you have to have a plan. Breakfast is essential. It's not essential to losing weight. I'm not talking about weight loss. That all happened naturally. I think you just forget the weight loss and focus on becoming healthy, because the weight loss will happen and you'll just be shocked by it. Breakfast is essential because you need to get your metabolism going. It regulates your blood sugar. It sets you up for a good day. Skipping breakfast leads you into bad decisions throughout the day. You're reaching for the donut half, mid-morning, and coffee and other stimulants, and maybe skipping lunch because you're eating a bunch of crap, in mid-morning, and then maybe you're sliding into dinner and you're face down because you're so hungry, and then you don't sleep right because you've got so much food your body's trying to digest, and you should be, sleeping and resting and rebuilding and repairing. So essentially, what I tell people, the number one thing they could do to start eating better is to eat breakfast. And a simple breakfast for me is a morning smoothie. And I'll even, we're talking plant-based protein like pepitas, the pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, which are very, very easy to find. I'm a huge, huge fan of Costco, and they have all of these products I'm talking about. Huge organic offering now, so there really isn't an excuse. Very, very affordable. So your morning smoothie, maybe with some seasonal fruit. I add cinnamon in mine if I need to regulate my blood sugar. I add raw cacao for magnesium, which a lot of us are deficient in. I add coconut oil, a nice healthy fat that satiates us and gets us to the next meal. If you can prepare your smoothie, most of it at night, just put the dry ingredients into the jar and have your fresh fruit washed. Next morning, you just throw it all together. And I use water and I use ice. I don't use the almond milks and all the other, there's so many ingredients in there that I can't even pronounce. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. We all have to start somewhere, but my smoothies are delicious just with water, especially when I add the cacao or the cinnamon, and the coconut gives it some flavor.
Yeah, I found that too. I used to put other stuff like almond milk and stuff, and even yogurt in my smoothies, and I found that I really don't need to do that when I add some of these other things like the hemp seed and chia and all that. It's just so many variations of smoothies. One of the things I like to do too in the morning, like I don't eat breakfast every day, but when I do, when I feel like I need a meal, I'll just have like one egg. I call it my one egg pancake. And I top it off with broccoli or avocado or something like that. And it gives me enough protein and lasts me several hours. Now,
good. You mentioned protein, Lisa. I want to say this one thing about protein, and I think people aren't getting enough protein in their morning breakfast, because that really sets you up. And one egg is 6 grams of protein, so I would try to double that. I have people aim for 20 grams of protein in their morning breakfast. And sometimes, depending on how hard I'm working, I might throw in some extra hemp or pepitas, but minimum I'd say 15 grams up to 20 grams of protein, because and this is depending on your weight and what level of activity you're at, but most people need an average of 50 to 60 grams of protein. And you just think about in your head, well, I'll aim for 15 to 20 grams a meal, but breakfast is where protein is essential, because I'll tell you, if I'm in a rush and I'm just drinking fruit juice, making a green juice out the door, I need to have my pepitas, or else I am off the entire day. I need the protein. So experiment with it. You do, like I said, everyone's individual. Do what you think is best for your body, but really focus on your breakfast.
Yeah, and sometimes I think sometimes I'll just add a few almonds too before I walk out the door, so that's a little bit of extra protein, right? Just to add a few nuts or something, like you said, the pepitas.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. So let's talk about how we can physically help tone the body, especially the belly fat. So what can we do aside from eating well and getting more balance and protein and eating breakfast? What can we do physically that would help?
Okay. So my favorite exercise, and I'm going to just sneak back real quick. Alcohol is a big contributor to belly fat. So as much as people want their glass of wine, you're going to get more benefit from dropping the wine, or at least drinking it in moderation a few times a week, versus these exercises I'm going to talk about.
So, okay. I agree with that. Yeah.
I think as a trainer, my favorite exercise for the abdomen is for your core is our planks. I mean, hands down. I mean, they're the best exercises. They've been around forever, like push-ups. I mean, you could basically do, and push-ups are actually good for the abdomen. You're on your toes because you're recruiting all your different major muscle groups. But you're getting for sure definition with your planks. You can do. My favorite are forearm planks. They're you're on your forearm. They're my favorite because you're recruiting more muscle groups: your back, your shoulders, your arms, your biceps, your legs. Everything, your core. You could go to a yoga plank and have your your palm underneath your shoulder, but that's really rough on a lot of people. It's not as much work as a forearm plank, and it hurts a lot of people's shoulders or rotator cuffs as you get older. But go to a forearm plank. You can mix it up. You can do plank jacks. You could start in your plank, and then you can take one foot out to the side at a time and do plank jacks. You can do forward rolls. You can bring your body forward. You can take it back and hold the plank. It's a tough plank. It's a lot harder than the yoga plank. Probably my favorite one, and you can turn over and do a side plank and get the rectus abdominis, or get the obliques too. In a forearm plank, you reduce the risk of injury. I guess you see people that jump into classes that do things that they shouldn't be doing. This is a nice, safe, effective exercise you can do anywhere. It'll improve your posture and your balance. But then again, bicycle, old school is a great exercise too, because not only does it get the rectus abdominis, but also the oblique. So I teach that in whether I'm teaching yoga or if I'm teaching a boot camp, I throw in bicycles. And getting the elbow the opposite knee, and simple stuff. You could do it, in your bedroom before work.
All right, let's go back to planks for a second. So I read somewhere that you could time your planks. So what would be a good way to start someone doing let's say forearm plank, how long would they be able to hold it the first time and then maybe work up to, I don't know, a minute or so, something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I say, well, first of all, there's 3 levels of a plank. You can drop to 1 knee or to 2 knees. So I usually start people on both knees. You can bring 1 knee up, or you can be on your toes. So I would say start 10 to 15 seconds, see how strong you feel, and progress up to 30 seconds. I don't think there is any reason to go past 30 seconds.
Really? Because 30 seconds is hard.
Yeah. I think if you need more, you start throwing in the balance work. You don't need to throw in more time and lose your form and then compromise your low back. I think sometimes it gets, so I think the form is the most important. And I think a good person, a very strong person can hold a great plank for 30 seconds, and that's all you need. And then, like I said, add in the tilts, add in the jacks, add in the one-legged planks. I mean, there's other ways to modify a plank instead of taking it to 2 minutes. That's insane.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because 30 seconds I can do, and I just need to do more of those, and I'm going to. So, can you talk about readiness for lifestyle change? Like, what has to happen for someone to improve their lifestyle? What does their mindset have to be like?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the key to this whole thing. You know, I changed because I was sick and I was tired of feeling like crap, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There are so many people. It's like I said, it's a behavioral change. There are so many reasons people don't eat well, or I should say eat badly. You know, it's an emotional thing. You know, they have foods that comfort them, or they don't exercise because they're more comfortable, you know, I don't know, sitting at home. And, you know what, it's a behavioral change. It's a mindset change. You really have to be committed to it. Your head has to be in it. And it's really not hard. It's actually so much fun. I schedule my workouts just like I schedule meetings with my clients. I look at my week, because my week isn't, the typical 9 to 5 anymore, which I'm very grateful for. But it's challenging for me to, when am I going to fit my exercise? And I'm running around getting everybody else healthy, but I got to think about myself. So I look at my schedule at the start of a week, and I schedule, okay, a bike ride on this day, a hike on this day, weights on this day, stretching on this day. And, you have to schedule exercise just like you schedule any of your other important appointments, because that's what it is. It's your health. I can't think of anything more important.
No kidding. Well, I hope so people can incorporate small changes too, right? Like, let's say they're not ready to make big changes, but they can incorporate something small. So
yeah, absolutely. And I totally recommend that. I'm glad you brought that up. You can't do it all at once. I mean, I didn't do it all at once. I started with my diet because, I jumped in the gym. And I did that because for me, that wasn't about, that was just, what am I going to do with my time? now that I'm not on flying around the world, I don't think it had anything to do with my health more than I got to get this belly weight off. Start it a little bit at a time. Start incorporating healthy foods into your diet. No one's saying you have to eat kale to be healthy. I don't love kale either, but, I'll throw it in a smoothie once in a while, or I'll make a great kale salad. Well, I don't eat it every day. I don't think you should have to do that. I think you pick the foods that you like, you start incorporating them into your diet, and you wouldn't believe how your body responds to that. It wants to be, it's like, your body is like an engine. Your gut, is like an engine. And if you feed it crappy, fuel, or if you don't give it an oil change, it's not going to perform. So just think about adding, more greens are probably number one. Those are the most nutrient dense vegetables you can get. Or maybe, on the weekend you say, okay, maybe my weeks are too busy, but on the weekend I'm going to hike, or I'm going to go for a bike ride. Or, you do your planks. I mean, I can't imagine planks and push-ups and squats and sit-ups. I don't know why you can't do that in a 20-minute routine every morning. You don't have to exercise for an hour. You do not have to go to a gym. And one of the reasons I don't teach in a gym anymore is because I just don't believe, I think we're sending the wrong message to people. You do not have to go and exercise for an hour. In fact, there's no way you can exercise out a bad diet. You can't. You just can't outrun a bad diet. That's what I'm trying to say. You in the morning you get up, you do your push-ups, you do your sit-ups, you do your planks, you do your squats, you stretch a little bit, 20 minutes, you're off to work. Great way to start your day with a smoothie in your hand, by the way. But very, very, I mean, there's no investment in this. This exercise is old school. We know how to do it. If you don't, get on the internet and find a good source. And, 20 minutes out of your day, I don't believe people don't have time for that. I just don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely comes down to mindset and readiness. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Michelle, what brings you bliss? Just, aside from, I don't know, your work or whatever, but like, what do you like to do for fun? What brings you bliss?
Oh my gosh, I love everything. I mean, my life has changed so much that I appreciate the beauty of a flower blooming. I appreciate this morning I got up early and went for a hike. There's just, I love being with my friends. I love taking care of my family and people that I care for. Cooking, eating, good food and sometimes bad food, but that's a temporary good feel. I can't say, you know what, Lisa, I love everything. I mean, I love discovering new things. I love being adventurous. I just love, it's like I'm a new person. It's like I have so much energy now, and I have so much curiosity. I think I always had, but boy, I was so dang tired from being so, carrying around extra weight and being unhealthy and drinking too much. And, I was just, I didn't think I was a mess. I thought, I'm pretty healthy. But now, I can't say that.
Someday we'll do a web conference or a buddy chat on how to change your career if you're terribly stressed out and unhappy, or you just need a change and you're looking for something to do that's more fulfilling. We'll do that together sometime.
I would support anyone to do that for sure.
Yeah. What is one thing you can tell someone to do in the next 24 to 48 hours that will get them on their way to becoming healthier and stronger? One thing.
Get up tomorrow morning and make yourself a smoothie after you do your planks, push-ups, sit-ups, and squats.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Michelle, your book is called Simply Seasonal. I love your book. I've used many of the recipes myself. Tell us a little bit about that and how we can get it.
I wrote that book after 5 years of cooking demos at Whole Foods markets and at local Scottsdale resorts because people were asking me the same questions over and over. It is not a diet. It is not, you're not going to read it and go, oh, that's the secret. It's basically just a combination of all things healthy, like Nutrition 101, why we, eat for nutrient density, why we eat seasonally, what is quinoa, how do we cook it, a lot of good recipes, soups, smoothies, salads. And I'm glad that you embraced, a lot of people have embraced it. You can, this is just a starter book. It's on Amazon right now it's under $10. It's a great start. It'll inspire you, it'll motivate you. It's simple. And then you can take it where you want. I've had people that, say that they want to, have inspired them to be a health advocate or have inspired them to be a healthy cooking teacher or just getting their families healthy. A lot of good results. Very simple. It's not restrictive. And just coaching, that's what I do best now. I'm a good coach because I've been through a lot and I understand all of it. I understand the challenges and, everything. And so I would recommend it if you just need, a little support. You can stick it in your purse. You can take it to the market with you and buy. There's a shopping list on there and just help you through your first, part of your journey. And then you'll discover yourself more. It's really, someone said that to me when I first started. I'm like, I don't believe that stuff. Well, you will. I mean, your body, it's so intuitive. You have to listen to your intuition. Your body will tell you what it wants. It will heal you. Your body is, in fact, designed to heal. It's designed to heal itself. It's incredible. And if you just listen to it, listen to the warning signs, that we get, listen to it. And then that's, get on that journey and wow, it's fascinating.
Well, let me just ask you one more question. How can people find you and your services? Like locally in Scottsdale or whatever you're doing. If you're doing some corporate education, right?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything because I really haven't figured out yet what I want to do. This career change is, if it was scary at first, of course it would be, but now I'm just like, I'm doing a little bit of everything. I'm at the Westin Kierland Hotel and Resort a lot, teaching classes for guests and associates. I'm writing a curriculum, a nutrition curriculum. I'm also working with a company to do corporate presentations. I've been doing speaking engagements for the last year for large companies, consumer products companies, and other. I do cooking demonstrations. I do, I say, my website, I don't know if you have it posted, but it's just my name. And, it just depends on where you're at, but there's a lot of great coaches out there. I'd say, get yourself on the journey. You'll know what you need. And, boy, I'd love to help if I can, but there's also a lot of great people. Things are changing. So, there's a lot of great information on the internet. I say even, and you follow it, Lisa, my Facebook, I'm terrible at social media. I don't have time for it, but I try to every day to post something healthy to really help people be healthy. So great information, take the sources, and do what you know.
Okay, well we'll post your website and your Facebook page on the blog post when this goes up. Well, that's great, Michelle. I think you've given us a really good thing to focus on, just some simple lifestyle changes with food and exercise. And I do hope that our audience is just going to take every word that you said and go apply it. So thank you so much for being with me today. And I know you're a big help to those who are kind of ready to make a change. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm very grateful that I had time with you this morning.
You bet. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay.